Welcome back to Half A Hot Rods. I'm Adam, and we've been doing some looking for the replacement for Missy's Blazer, and that's been a pretty tough bill to fill. We initially thought we wouldn't be able to afford to replace it because the market on the two-doors has just gone absolutely nuts. We bought hers 10 years ago for $1,500. Honestly, it was a deal then when we bought it, but they've gone absolutely crazy since then. So I found one in Oklahoma City, about 5 hours north of me. We drove up there, 5 hours one way. It was not as nice as it looked in the pictures. Of course, they never are. And we found another one to look at while we were up there and came home empty-handed. So 10 hours round trip and nothing to show for it. The very next day we went south. We found another two to look at. And we went down there, we went 5 hours south, we went another hour east of there to look at another one. Decided, okay, one of these two is going to work. We decided we're going to buy it. Get to looking at the title, there's an issue with the title. So we came home empty-handed again, another full day of travel. Then I found this one and decided to make an offer on it. It had some really nice wheels on it, but they're not really our style, not really my wife's style more specifically. And I offered him some money on it without the wheels, and he said he could do that. So we went to look at it, and long story short, this is the nicest one I've looked at since we started looking. And we were able to pick it up within our price range. It's a 94, so it's still a Blazer, not a Tahoe or a Yukon, which means we get to explain to people every time we order parts that no, it's not an S10, it's a full size. But this guy is, with the exception of not having the LS engine that I put in, this one is nicer than the old one. The red interior is very period correct. Would not have been our first choice, but it's in really good shape. So it's kind of hard to be mad about the red interior when it's in that nice a shape. So this one really doesn't need much. The hood is bent, so eventually that'll get addressed. It's got typical for Texas paint on the roof and the hood. Guy before me did a bunch of little things as far as new lights and that kind of thing. Like I said, he had fancier wheels on it, and he kept those in the deal we made. It's got some exhaust. Really nothing crazy. It's mostly stock. Transmission was rebuilt before we got it. So it's a very good starting point for what we want to do. And we had some wheels and tires we're going to put on it anyway. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to take these wheels and tires off, and we're going to crank the torsion bars a little bit, and we're going to fit these under it that were on the old Blazer. They're 315 75/16s or 35s, and I was able to get them under the old one because they have the correct factory offset with just a torsion bar crank and a little trimming of the inner wheel or the fender wells. And then once we get the front done, we'll come back to the back and put a couple of lift blocks in there. I just want to figure out how much lift we actually need before I buy lift blocks. So we're going to get started on it and see how far we can get today. Okay, so we're under the Blazer. When I talk about cranking the torsion bars, this is what I'm talking about. This little fella here is holding the end of a key, and we're going to crank this little bolt that's up in there, and that's going to turn that key, and that's going to turn this bar that goes all the way to the front, all the way to the control arm. You can see up there where it goes into the control arm, and that's going to raise the front of the vehicle by turning the lower control arm down. Now, pretty normally there is some adjustment difference side to side because somewhere over the years somebody's made a change, and there's less adjustment left in the driver's side than there is in the passenger side. So we may end up going as far up as we can on the driver's side and then just matching the passenger side to that as far as number of turns. There's a number of different ways I've seen guys do it. I always take the front end off the ground, take all the load off it, so that it's making it as easy as possible on the whole system to crank them up. It's going to stiffen the ride, it's going to make it ride rougher, but it is free. So that's kind of what we like about it, that it doesn't cost us anything. And then once we determine how much lift we gained, we'll raise the rear by the same amount. Okay, so I gave the torsion bars about 3 whole turns on that bolt I showed you, and that didn't max out the driver's side, which I'd rather not, because like I said, the more you crank that, the harsher the ride is. And when I talked about trimming, this right here is where I was talking about. This little edge that ends right there. But as you can see, this is as close as this is going to get. I've cycled it several times through the full range of motion. That's as close as that's going to get at the back, and I don't think it's going to hit. I've bounced on it up and down, and because of the type of suspension this is with the torsion bars and the control arms, that wheel moves straight up and down. Leaf springs, they'll move forward and back a little bit as they travel, and then this is the closest it's going to be on the front side, which is still quite a bit. And I think, again, bouncing on it, it doesn't even get close. So I think unless she decides to jump this, which hopefully she won't, because that's not really what it's made for, we'll be fine. So I'm not going to cut, since I don't absolutely have to, because I don't want to expose any of those surfaces to potential rust. So we'll go ahead and get the rest of the lug nuts on there, make sure our tire pressures are what we want. Then we'll do a test fit on the rear, get the floor jack out, and figure out how big of a block we need to make it sit level, because we don't really like the squat. Well, there it is on all 4, and I haven't done anything with the rear of this yet, and honestly I don't know if I'm going to. By the tape measure, the rear wheel well is lower than the front, but when we put a level on the belt molding, very gently, you can see that it's sitting just about perfectly level. And we may change our mind and raise the rear up 1 inch. From the factory, these had a little rake, meaning the back was a little higher than the front, so that when you loaded them down with stuff or hooked a trailer to them, then they would squat and it would still be level. We may add that later. I haven't decided yet. We'll see what the wife thinks of it this way. It's her ride, so ultimately she'll make the decision on it. And it won't very often pull a trailer, maybe every now and then a stock trailer, but if they're loaded evenly, they won't squat it too bad. This is a real simple job. Like I said, it's free if you have a handful of tools. I mean, you need a floor jack, a couple of jack stands ideally, some 1/2 inch sockets and a 1/2 inch ratchet, a little PV blaster or WD-40 or something, lights so you can see. The impact makes it nice for changing the wheels, but you could certainly do it with a 4-way tire iron. And the whole thing probably took me, with changing the tires, I don't know, about an hour. That's assuming that your torsion bars aren't already all cranked up, because they're wore out and nothing's rusted too bad underneath. But I think it looks very good with the bigger tires. Like I said, by using factory GM wheels, they push the wheel into the wheel well a little more than the aftermarket ones, and that allows you to get a little more tire with less lift. I just want to say thanks to Travis at Rusty Nuts Classic Car Restoration. He's in Henderson, Texas. He's got some awesome stuff there and a ton of talent based on what I saw while I was wandering around his shop. He does some really cool stuff there. So if you are in a position to pay somebody to do that stuff for you, it looks to me like he would be a very good guy to do it. As for the Blazer, there'll be more videos to come. We'll keep doing little projects on it and making it more of what Missy wants. I won't reveal what they are until we're digging into them, but it's a long way to the finish line, I can tell you that. Until next time, remember, if I can do it, you can do it.